Palo Alto city leaders taking action to crack down on the growing number of RVs on the streets. It's a problem we've seen in several Bay Area cities, and Palo Alto isn't just going after the RVs.
America didn't run out of homes. It ran out of exits. In 2026, RV homelessness is exploding across America because housing recovery has collapsed. Millions of working people, seniors, and families are being pushed into vehicles, not by choice, but by policy, pricing, and enforcement. What's changing now makes this crisis permanent, and most Americans don't realize how close they are to it. RV homelessness used to be a short bridge between housing situations. In 2026, that bridge has collapsed. What was once a few weeks or months has turned into years of displacement for millions of Americans. The key change is recovery time. After losing housing, the average renter now needs 12 to 24 months to regain stable housing, if they ever do at all. Rent prices remain 30 to 50% higher than pre-2020 levels in many metro areas, while wages haven't caught up. Even people earning $50,000 to $70,000 annually are locked out of housing due to strict income requirements, credit score damage, and massive upfront costs. In 2026, landlords increasingly require first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, and proof of income 3 to 4 times the monthly rent. That means renters often need $8,000 to $12,000 just to move in. RV living becomes permanent, not because people prefer it, but because they cannot pass these re-entry barriers. Once someone moves into an RV, they often lose a permanent address, making job applications, government benefits, and school enrollment much harder. This creates a feedback loop where RV living extends indefinitely. Data from housing advocacy groups shows that over 60% of vehicle dwellers in 2025 had been unhoused for more than a year, compared to under 30% a decade earlier. In 2026, RV homelessness shifts from a temporary crisis response to a long-term housing substitute, exposing the failure of housing recovery systems nationwide. One of the most misunderstood changes in 2026 is who RV homeless people actually are. The majority are employed, not unemployed. Studies across major metro regions show that 55 to 65% of vehicle dwellers now have active income, often from full-time jobs. These are warehouse workers, healthcare aides, teachers' assistants, gig drivers, construction workers, and service employees. Employment no longer guarantees housing because housing costs have completely decoupled from wages. Between 2020 and 2026, average rents rose roughly 40% nationally, while median wages increased closer to 18 to 20%. That gap forces people to choose between rent, food, healthcare, or transportation. RV living becomes the only option that allows them to keep working. However, even this option is fragile and unstable. Workers living in RVs face increased job instability due to unreliable parking, constant displacement, and chronic sleep deprivation. In 2026, many employers still require physical presence at work, yet provide wages that cannot support housing anywhere near. Job centers. Commuting from distant, cheaper areas is often impossible without reliable vehicles or enough money for fuel. RV homelessness fills that gap, but at tremendous cost. Workers report missing shifts due to towing, police interactions, or mechanical breakdowns. This creates a vicious cycle where employment exists, but stability does not. The most important shift is psychological. Homelessness is no longer associated with joblessness. In 2026, having a job no longer protects people from losing their home, fundamentally changing how homelessness must be understood and addressed. In previous economic downturns, layoffs caused financial stress first and housing loss later. In 2026, that delay is gone completely. Layoffs now translate into immediate homelessness risk because households no longer have savings buffers to fall back on. Surveys show that nearly 60% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency, and over 40% live paycheck to paycheck. When a job ends, rent stops being affordable within weeks. Unemployment benefits rarely cover rent anymore. In many states, maximum weekly benefits range between $300 to $500, while average monthly rents exceed $1,800. Even short gaps in employment can trigger eviction, lease non-renewal, or forced move-outs. Once someone loses housing, requalifying becomes much harder due to credit damage and rental history gaps that follow them everywhere. In 2026, layoffs are also more fragmented and unpredictable. Instead of mass factory closures, people experience rolling layoffs, contract terminations, reduced hours, and gig platform deactivations. These don't always qualify for unemployment benefits, leaving people with zero income and absolutely no safety net. RV living becomes the fastest way to avoid sleeping on the street after a layoff. What's new is speed. The pipeline from job loss to RV homelessness can now occur in 30 to 60 days, compared to 6 months or more in earlier decades. This compression of time is one of the most dangerous shifts happening in 2026, leaving families almost no time to recover. While RV homelessness is growing rapidly, cities are moving in the opposite direction. In 2026, many municipalities are quietly removing legal RV parking zones rather than expanding solutions or creating alternatives. Instead of headline-grabbing bans, cities use time limits, permit requirements, street redesigns, and enforcement scheduling to push RVs out block by block. Over the past 2 years, dozens of cities have reduced overnight parking windows from 72 hours to 24 hours or less, or banned vehicle dwelling outright in residential zones. Industrial areas that once tolerated RVs are being rezoned or heavily patrolled. Even areas near highways and commercial districts are seeing new restrictions that make parking illegal almost everywhere. The key change is enforcement consistency. In the past, laws existed but were loosely applied, giving people some breathing room. In 2026, cities are enforcing them daily with precision. Automated license plate readers, coordinated towing contracts, and complaint-driven enforcement mean RV dwellers are constantly moving. This instability makes it nearly impossible to maintain employment, medical care, or consistent schooling for children. Cities frame these actions as public safety or sanitation measures, but the result is displacement without alternatives. By shrinking legal parking space rather than increasing housing supply, cities effectively turn RV homelessness into a mobile crisis, pushing people from jurisdiction to jurisdiction with absolutely no exit. The pressure builds everywhere, and there's nowhere left to go. Safe parking programs were designed as a pressure valve for vehicle homelessness, but by 2026, many are overwhelmed and failing. These programs typically offer 50 to 200 spaces, while demand often exceeds 1,000 applicants or more. As budgets tighten across cities, safe parking programs are being capped, adding stricter eligibility rules, or quietly shutting down completely. Many programs now limit stays to 30 to 90 days, far shorter than the time actually needed to secure permanent housing. Others exclude larger RVs, families with children, or people without documented income. Some programs require proof of housing readiness, which excludes those most in need of help. Funding shortages, neighborhood opposition, and liability concerns are driving these cuts across the country. The numbers tell the story clearly. In several major metro areas, safe parking capacity serves less than 5% of vehicle dwellers. Even when accepted into programs, participants face strict curfews, mandatory check-ins, and constant uncertainty about whether their stay will be extended. Once time runs out, people are forced back onto the streets with nowhere to go. In 2026, safe parking no longer functions as a bridge to housing. It functions as temporary containment and visibility management. Without affordable housing exits on the other end, these programs cycle people in and out of instability. The result is a system that manages visibility rather than solving homelessness, leaving RV dwellers with fewer options than ever before. One of the least discussed but most damaging changes in 2026 is how insurance and registration rules are quietly reshaping RV homelessness. Insurance companies are increasingly flagging RVs used as full-time residences as high-risk assets. As a result, premiums are rising sharply, policies are being canceled outright, and some insurers are refusing to cover older rigs entirely. For many RV homeless individuals, insurance costs have doubled or tripled compared to just a few years ago. In multiple states, proof of insurance and current registration is now actively cross-checked during parking enforcement and routine traffic stops. This creates a devastating trap. If someone cannot afford insurance increases, they lose coverage completely. Without coverage, they risk tickets, towing, or impoundment. Registration renewal is also becoming more expensive, especially in states adding emissions requirements, safety inspections, or residency documentation. In 2026, some states are cracking down hard on out-of-state plates, forcing RV dwellers to re-register locally, often at much higher cost. This disproportionately affects people who originally registered their RV in lower-cost states just to survive financially. Once re-registered, fees can reach $1,000 or more annually for older or heavier rigs. These administrative pressures push people deeper into illegality without addressing housing whatsoever. RV homelessness becomes harder not because people refuse to comply with the law, but because compliance itself is becoming completely unaffordable. The system punishes poverty while offering no escape route. Towing has become one of the most destabilizing forces for RV homeless Americans in 2026. Cities are expanding contracts with private towing companies, creating strong financial incentives to remove RVs quickly rather than resolve violations gradually or humanely. Once towed, reclaiming an RV can cost $1,500 to $5,000 in fees within just a few days, far beyond what most RV dwellers can possibly afford. Impoundments often happen without meaningful warning. Notices may be placed just hours before enforcement or delivered electronically to addresses people no longer have access to. When an RV is seized, everything inside goes with it: identification documents, medications, work tools, family belongings, and sometimes even pets. Losing an RV often means losing the last barrier between survival and complete street homelessness. In 2026, towing is no longer reactive, it's proactive and systematic. Cities use complaint mapping, license plate scanners, and coordinated patrol schedules to systematically clear RVs from neighborhoods. Some municipalities now tow for expired registration alone, even if the RV is otherwise legally parked and causing no issues. Data from advocacy groups shows a rising percentage of RV homeless individuals become fully unsheltered within weeks of an impoundment. Towing doesn't solve homelessness, it accelerates it. The RV, once a survival asset and the last piece of stability, becomes a liability that can be removed at any moment, leaving people with absolutely nothing. By 2026, seniors represent one of the fastest growing segments of the RV homeless population. Fixed incomes from Social Security, pensions, or disability benefits have failed to keep pace with housing costs. The average Social Security benefit sits near $1,900 per month, while rents in many regions exceed that amount alone, before adding utilities, food, or medical costs. Many seniors enter RV homelessness after a single destabilizing event: a rent increase, unexpected medical bill, spouse's death, or property tax spike. Downsizing no longer works because even small apartments require income verification at 3 times the rent, amounts seniors cannot meet. RVs become the last option that allows autonomy, dignity, and privacy. Health risks escalate quickly for seniors living in vehicles. They face limited access to consistent medical care, refrigeration for medications, and climate control during extreme heat or cold. Mobility issues make frequent relocation dangerous and exhausting, yet enforcement pressures force constant movement anyway. In 2026, shelters are often unsuitable for seniors due to safety concerns, shared sleeping spaces, and lack of accessibility features. As a result, RV living becomes the default fallback for older Americans. This marks a significant demographic shift. Homelessness is no longer concentrated among younger populations. It is increasingly affecting retirees who followed the rules, worked for decades, paid into the system, and still lost housing security in their final years. Another major shift in 2026 is the growing number of families with children living in RVs. Rising rents, school district housing shortages, and unstable employment are forcing parents to choose vehicle living as the only way to keep families together. Shelters often separate families by age or gender, making RVs the only way to maintain family unity. School attendance becomes complicated and stressful. Without a permanent address, enrollment can be delayed or contested by school districts. Families rely on mail forwarding services or temporary addresses, creating constant risk of disruption. Children face long commutes, inconsistent sleep, and extremely limited space for homework, all of which negatively affect academic performance and mental health. Data from school districts shows rising numbers of students classified as housing insecure, many of whom live in vehicles with their families. In some regions, this number has increased by 30 to 50% in just a few years. RV living allows parents to stay near schools and jobs, but only as long as parking remains tolerated in those areas. In 2026, enforcement pressure puts these families in constant motion, dramatically increasing stress and instability for everyone. Parents struggle to maintain normalcy, while children face stigma and educational disruption. RV homelessness for families is no longer a rare exception. It is becoming a structural outcome of housing unaffordability across the country, affecting more children every month as rents continue rising faster than wages. For years, rural areas served as a pressure release valve for RV homelessness. In 2026, that escape route is closing rapidly. Small towns are adopting the same restrictions once limited to large cities, including overnight parking bans, aggressive zoning enforcement, and complaint-based towing operations. Rural counties face their own housing shortages, limited infrastructure, and political pressure from residents who strongly oppose visible homelessness in their communities. Without shelter capacity or social services, these areas rely on enforcement rather than solutions. RV dwellers who relocate to rural zones often face quicker removal because they stand out more in smaller populations. Access to healthcare, employment, and emergency services is also severely limited in rural areas. Fuel costs rise dramatically as people travel farther for basic needs like groceries or medical appointments. Mechanical failures become catastrophic when repair facilities are scarce or non-existent. In many cases, rural displacement simply pushes RV homeless individuals back toward cities, where restrictions are even tighter and more heavily enforced. In 2026, the myth of "just move somewhere cheaper" collapses completely. There are fewer places willing to tolerate vehicle living, regardless of population density or available space. RV homelessness is no longer a city problem confined to urban areas. It is a nationwide crisis with no remaining safe fallback zones. The squeeze is happening everywhere simultaneously, leaving people with nowhere to go at all. A major change in 2026 is the sharp decline in public tolerance toward RV homelessness. What was once viewed as temporary or sympathetic is now increasingly framed as a nuisance or public safety issue. Complaint-driven enforcement has surged dramatically. Cities rely heavily on resident reports, business complaints, and neighborhood pressure to justify crackdowns. This creates a feedback loop where visibility triggers enforcement, and enforcement increases instability. Local governments respond to voter pressure faster than to housing data or humanitarian concerns. Even in cities with severe housing shortages, RV dwellers are blamed for trash accumulation, traffic congestion, or declining property values, often without evidence. Media framing and political rhetoric increasingly portray RV homelessness as disorder rather than displacement caused by economic forces. This matters because public tolerance directly shapes policy decisions. In 2026, fewer elected officials are willing to defend RV dwellers publicly. Programs once protected by community support are now scaled back due to organized opposition. RV homeless individuals report more frequent harassment, threats, and informal eviction attempts by residents taking matters into their own hands. As tolerance declines, enforcement becomes normalized and socially acceptable. RV dwellers are no longer warned first, they're simply removed. This shift increases psychological stress and forces people to move constantly, undermining any stability. The erosion of public empathy doesn't reduce homelessness whatsoever. It accelerates displacement and pushes people into more dangerous situations without addressing underlying housing shortages. RV parks were once a semi-stable option for people living in vehicles. In 2026, that option is rapidly disappearing. Monthly rates have increased dramatically, often reaching $900 to $500 per month, excluding electricity and additional fees. Short-term nightly pricing dominates the market, making long-term stays completely unaffordable for most people. Many parks are also limiting stay lengths to avoid tenant protections or zoning scrutiny. No long-term residence clauses are increasingly common in park rules. Some parks cap stays at 30 or 60 days, forcing constant relocation. Others require proof of income, background checks, or newer RV models, specifically excluding older rigs commonly used by homeless individuals. Zoning pressure also plays a significant role. Cities are tightening definitions of recreational use, preventing RV parks from serving as de facto housing. Park owners respond by raising prices and limiting access to reduce legal risk. In 2026, RV parks no longer function as a housing alternative for the displaced. They operate as tourism infrastructure, not shelter. Owners cater to vacationers and retirees with money, not people struggling to survive. For RV homeless individuals, this removes one of the last semi-legal stability options and pushes them back into public spaces, where enforcement is intensifying daily. The private market solution has failed. Parks that once accepted long-term residents now turn them away, leaving fewer options every month. Another critical shift in 2026 is legal language. Cities and states are increasingly redefining vehicle living as illegal housing rather than tolerated necessity. This reclassification has serious legal consequences. Once RV living is labeled a housing violation, enforcement escalates from parking tickets to zoning, health, and code enforcement actions. Some jurisdictions now issue citations for habitation, unauthorized dwelling, or improper land use. These carry much higher fines and faster towing authority. Unlike parking violations, these citations often cannot be corrected by simply moving to another location. This change allows cities to bypass court challenges related to homelessness protections by framing enforcement as land use regulation rather than criminalization of poverty. RV dwellers lose legal defenses tied to shelter shortages or emergency housing rights. In 2026, this legal shift expands enforcement power while shrinking accountability. RV homelessness becomes invisible in official housing statistics because it's treated as a violation, not displacement. This erasure makes the crisis harder to measure and easier to ignore politically. The legal reclassification also affects insurance, registration, and property disputes. RVs used as housing face different regulations than recreational vehicles, creating new compliance burdens. People are punished for using vehicles to survive, even when no other housing exists. This legal transformation doesn't solve homelessness. It criminalizes survival, making people's situations worse while allowing governments to claim they're addressing illegal activity rather than acknowledging housing failure. The legal framework punishes the symptoms while ignoring the cause. In 2026, one of the biggest misconceptions is that RV living is still cheap. That is no longer true. While rent prices remain high, the cost structure of RV living is rising even faster, especially for people forced to move constantly. Fuel costs alone have become a major financial burden. Frequent relocation due to enforcement means many RV dwellers spend $400 to $700 per month on fuel, far more than stationary renters ever pay. Maintenance is another major pressure. Most RVs used for homelessness are older models purchased cheaply out of necessity. These rigs require constant repairs: tires, brakes, suspension, electrical systems, and plumbing. A single breakdown can cost $2,000 to $6,000, and many repairs must be paid in cash. Financing options are often unavailable because RVs are classified as depreciating recreational assets, not housing. Insurance premiums have surged, especially for older RVs. Many owners face policy cancellations or forced upgrades, adding hundreds of dollars per year. On top of that, tickets, citations, permits, and towing risks create unpredictable expenses. Even storage fees for belongings can exceed $200 per month when RVs are impounded or downsized. By 2026, RV living is no longer cheaper than renting. It's simply the only option left when every other housing option is inaccessible. People are not choosing it for savings. They are choosing it because nothing else is available. In past decades, homelessness came with fallback options. In 2026, those safety nets are largely gone. Friends and family are no longer reliable backups because they are facing housing pressure themselves. Overcrowding laws, strict lease restrictions, and financial strain mean people cannot take others in, even temporarily. Shelter systems are overwhelmed everywhere. Many operate at full capacity year-round, with waitlists stretching weeks or months. Time limits force people back out before stability is achieved. Shelters also exclude RV dwellers with pets, partners, medical needs, or work schedules that don't align with shelter rules. For families and seniors, shelters often feel unsafe or unsuitable. Public assistance programs are also severely strained. Housing vouchers are scarce, with wait lists measured in years, not months. Emergency assistance funds run out quickly every cycle. Caseworkers handle impossible caseloads, delaying help until it's too late to matter. In many areas, temporary help has become symbolic rather than functional. This collapse of backup options makes RV homelessness sticky. Once someone enters vehicle living, exits are rare. Small problems like illness, job interruption, or mechanical failure become life-altering events because there is nowhere else to go. In 2026, RV homelessness isn't sustained by choice. It's sustained by the complete absence of alternatives. The safety net has disappeared, leaving people trapped in vehicles with no clear path forward. The most important change in 2026 is not how many people are RV homeless. It's how long they stay that way. RV homelessness has crossed a threshold from temporary crisis into structural permanence. Systems no longer aim to rehouse people quickly. They manage displacement instead. Cities plan enforcement cycles, not housing exits. Budgets prioritize cleanup, towing, and compliance rather than affordability. RVs quietly function as part of the housing supply, without legal recognition or protection. This allows governments to avoid addressing shortages while keeping homelessness mobile and less visible. Data from advocacy groups shows growing numbers of people remaining in vehicle homelessness for 2, 3, or more years. This length of displacement causes long-term damage, health decline, employment instability, trauma, and social isolation. Once people fall into long-term RV homelessness, recovery becomes exponentially harder. 2026 is the year this pattern becomes undeniable. RV homelessness is no longer treated as an emergency anomaly. It's being absorbed into the system as normal. Without major policy shifts, this form of homelessness will continue expanding quietly, normalized through enforcement rather than solved through housing. The shift to permanence means an entire generation may never return to stable housing. What was once temporary has become a way of life, not by choice, but by system design. The crisis has become the new normal. This system isn't failing people by accident, it's pushing them out by design. Our next video shows how RV homelessness is being criminalized through laws most Americans don't even know exist. Watch that next so you understand what's coming, and share your thoughts in the comments. Is this the future we're accepting?